Cool. Dang. Deadpool 2 is the sequel to the surprisingly successful Deadpool movie that came out in 2016. That movie was huge. It made almost $750 million, and it kinda, sorta, maybe, probably, definitely inspired Fox to make Wolverine's last movie rated R. Don't worry, that's mentioned in this movie, and it's awesome. Ryan Reynolds returns to once again reprise his role as the Merc with the Mouth. This movie also stars Josh Brolin as Cable. It's not Thanos. He was Thanos in the last movie. I want to keep things vague about the story. Number one, because there really isn't much story to begin with, but also because there are certain things that have been left out of the trailers, and I want to keep things vague because I don't like spoiling things, and I want people to go into the movie surprised. So here's the basic gist of the movie. There's a kid who's in trouble. He's under attack, or he's in danger from something, and Deadpool feels really bad for this kid, and he wants to help this kid. So he recruits a team of badasses to try to help this kid out of a very dangerous situation. That's it. That's all I'm willing to tell you. That's the movie. Let me get a disclaimer out of the way before I go any further in this review. If you are not a fan of the first Deadpool movie, if you're not even a fan of the character, you don't really like his humor, this movie is not going to convert you. Nah, not at all. It's the same loud, vulgar, dirty, filthy, funny, badass movie that the first movie was. And if you love that, then you're going to love this movie. However, parents, I would strongly caution you to leave those kids at home. This movie ain't for them. Don't let Deadpool lie to you. He's going to try to lie to you and tell you that this movie is for them. No, it's not. A movie like this, you really need the humor to land, because the humor is the biggest driving point of what Deadpool is as a character. He is a comic book character who actually knows that he is a comic book character. There is a shit ton of really great meta humor that you can have with that. First movie had that in spades. This movie kind of doubles down on a lot of that humor. I'm not gonna lie, this movie had me chuckling, chortling, laughing, and shrieking hysterically like a hyena throughout the entire runtime. I don't actually think that this movie is as funny as the first movie was, but again, I was consistently laughing throughout it, and I think that's really all fans of Deadpool want, is they want a funny-ass movie with some great action in it. In particular, one of my favorite things about this movie is that they took the Wade Wilson and Colossus relationship from the first movie, and they did even better with it this time. Full disclosure, for those who don't know, Colossus is actually my favorite X-Men. I was really glad to see him portrayed the way he was in Deadpool. He's back in this movie, and the relationship between him and Wade, it's even more funny, and it's also surprisingly heartfelt in some ways. I'm just saying that's one of the highlights of the movie for me. Another one of the highlights of the movie for me is Domino. Domino, I can't remember the actress's name. I think it starts with a Z, ends with a B. I'm just gonna call her ZB for this review. She was awesome in this movie. She was really sexy. She was really badass in all the ways that Domino should be. But I also love the funny way that they explain her abilities or her powers in this movie. Basically, she's like, luck is a superpower. And then you see during the movie, oh yeah, luck actually is a superpower for her, because basically there's a domino effect of things that happen around her. And then somehow she ends up coming out of it looking okay. And so I thought that was really clever. Josh Brolin also nails it as Cable. This guy is having a hell of a year. First, he snaps half the universe out of existence, and then he decides to shoot people. He comes from the future, he decides to shoot people. That's his role in this movie. Granted, it takes a while before Cable actually shows up in this movie, but once he shows up, it's almost like the entire movie picked up its momentum, and it just raced towards the finish line, towards a really exciting, thrilling finale. Speaking of thrills, they got the director from John Wick and Atomic Blonde to do this movie. In particular, Atomic Blonde had the best action scene of 2017, hands down. So it was really fun to see him get the reins of a big budget superhero movie and get to play a little bit with the hand-to-hand choreography. Because if there is one area where the action scenes have improved upon the first one, it's the fact that the close-quarter combat hand-to-hand choreography is actually miles better. It's not even to say that it was bad in the first movie. It's just to say it was really good in this movie. And David Leitch, I think is his name, he brought that to this movie, and I gotta thank him for it. There are a couple of cameos in this movie that are going to knock you on your ass. Make sure you're paying attention for them. Also, when the movie ends, do not get your ass out of that seat. You sit down and you stay there and you watch one of the greatest mid-credit scenes I personally have ever seen. I swear to God, it was so funny. I'm pretty sure I died laughing in the theater, and that you're not even really hearing a review from the physical version of me. And this is the cinematic, spiritual plane version of me, which I'm actually going to see if I can still get laid in this version, so win-win. Deadpool 2 does what a sequel should do. It takes everything that you loved about the first one, it doubles down on that shit, and introduces a couple of cool new things to keep you interested. I don't think that this movie is as good as the first movie, and it does have its fair share of issues. I think this movie got off to kind of a weird start from a pacing and tone standpoint. The first act of this movie feels like it's kind of meandering, kind of like it doesn't really have a direction that it wants to go. It lacks focus. For a while, we're just spinning our wheels, rehashing some things from the first movie, and I was kind of like, okay, where are we going with this movie? But I can't lie, the first act, I was kind of going in and out in terms of interest. Then we get to the standpoint of this is a sequel, and they tried to get everything bigger than the first one, and bigger is not always better. It's just not. A lot more going on here. There's a lot more story. There's a lot more things that feel like they were shoehorned into the movie to set up future things in the future. It's kind of hard to criticize the movie for that because the movie's very self-aware and it kind of references the fact that there are things that are coming in the future. Still, that doesn't mean I can ignore it for a review. This movie has things that make it feel cluttered. It feels very crammed in some spots. This film also might disappoint some people who are looking forward to seeing certain characters. This movie doesn't always juggle them the right way. Some characters that you were a fan of from the first movie really don't have much to do this time around. There are other characters that were teased in the trailer that really aren't really there for much of the movie at all. Now, I thought that some of the CG could have been better. Even with the budget that they have, sometimes you gotta operate within your budget. But even then, the movie makes fun of it. This movie is like critic-proof. Everything that you complain about in this movie, the movie complains about itself. I would compare this to Golden Circle, Kingsman: The Golden Circle that came out last year. It's a really fun, kick-ass sequel, but it's not really as good as the first movie, and you really shouldn't expect it to be. Deadpool 2 was a really funny time at the movies, and I'm going to put it in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Guys, go see Deadpool 2. I'll have a spoiler review out for that sometime early next week because I want to give you guys a chance to see it. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel. Stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.
Yeah, I wanna shoot, baby.
Packed in your stack, especially in the back, brother.